all of these chemicals are being used in these upper atmospheric tests. And these are extensive tests having been done for years, and we know that the U.S. Navy, for example, in 2009, put up an aluminum oxide dust cloud over the eastern seaboard of the entire United States. And what they did is this aluminum oxide dust cloud they put up so that they could conduct university and government experiments having this aluminum oxide floating around in our environment. It will eventually come down, and when it does, it will pollute the water and it will pollute the soil, and it will pollute everything when it comes back down. The Navy intends to continue these type of testing. The Air Force conducts what they call night cloud experiments by putting trimethyl aluminum and other chemicals into canisters and then superheating them in the atmosphere and conducting tests when they explode. These canisters will explode. So there's any number of programs. The University of Alaska lists them using barium to create man-made auroras.
Right.
So sometimes when people talk about auroras as being natural, we see them here in the United States in areas where they had never been seen before. And what we're finding is that the University of Alaska and NASA and the Air Force are conducting experiments where they can artificially create an ionosphere and also man-made auroras. That documentation is online as well.
Why do you think they would do that? What was the reason for that, do you think?
Well, we have the capability, one. We have the money to do these experiments, and we have no restrictions, either internationally or here in the United States, that would restrict using the atmosphere and the various layers for experimentation purposes. There are no restrictions on geoengineering right now, and so some of the cloud whitening experiments are being done and conducted. A new geoengineering experiment by the UK is about to begin, where they're going to take this balloon, they're going to loft it into the air, and they're going to add salt from seawater. They're going to push that into the atmosphere above us. And so that's one of the newest that was reported in The Guardian in this last month. I think September 2nd was the date. But all of this experimentation, anyone can use our environment around us as a physics laboratory. And I think having the money and they want to do the experiments, even if it's detrimental. And the scientists that spoke at NASA Ames in 2006 were of a mind that they were the new gods of the environment, and that these climate scientists, so-called scientists, felt that they were the new gods, the new stewards of the environment, and if they wanted to conduct an experiment, supposedly to save us, that they should be able to conduct those experiments, and that the public really didn't need to know. We just needed to be willing to know nothing, but be the subjects, the guinea pigs in their experiment, and live within the experiment.
Very interesting, the mindset, obviously, of some of these scientists then in that sense. So do we know if these are people who are associated solely with the government, or maybe they are part of other companies as well? And if so, do you think there would be an interest from their point of view of doing this kind of work, Rosalind?
Well, there's an interest for them to do the work because they get grants for this type of work from the military and from NASA and other government agencies. And the other thing is that it's fun to be able to sit in your office and work out experiments and then actually to take them to the next level and do the experiment. But the problem is that there's no restriction on them having to have a public debate. There's no restriction on what they can or cannot do at this time. So, and the reason that I know that these chemicals are beginning to show up in our drinking water supplies are that the California State Department of Health Drinking Water Division requires, along with the EPA, requires drinking water tests across the entire state from every public drinking water source in California. There's about 18 million bytes of data from this type of testing, and we got a hold of the data, which is public record. It's online, even at the California State Department of Health website. But the data is online, and we took it and we graphed it, and we looked at the results on spreadsheets, thousands of them, and we found that there was unusual spiking in aluminum, barium, strontium, sulfur hexafluoride, in other words, a whole group of chemicals that shouldn't be spiking in our drinking water. And we think that some of the upper atmospheric tests using rockets mostly, or the space shuttle, for years, had been implementing these tests, and that's why we were seeing the spikes. The other issue is that an environmental group called Oceana recently went around the world for 5 years testing whales in all different ocean environments for many toxic chemicals, and one of the things that Oceana found that shocked them was the extremely high levels of aluminum that they found in whales. And it doesn't surprise me because we've been putting aluminum particulates into the environment for many, many, many years.
So, and I don't doubt that aspect at all, Rosalind. I think the only thing that I've been uncertain about is how we connect the increase in aluminum in our environment with the potential project here that we're talking about, or the geoengineering. Has there been, in your view, any good test that actually is proving the link between the two?
I can link the use of rockets and Air Force studies, NASA studies, and Navy studies to putting aluminum into the atmosphere for testing purposes.
Yeah.
That's an easy connection. The documentation is tremendous. As far as linking it to the jets, I can't do it directly because I have found no literature since 2002 which tells me what the jets may or may not be releasing, except for water vapor and jet fuel emissions.
Absolutely, it's very, very strange, that we see these aspects, and some people speculate that this program is kind of like step one in a process which has to do with other things. I mean, if I read in the paper from Mike Thompson, the congressman, as well, that in the in Mendocino County you have another I don't know what to call a device, I guess, a VORTAC, the VHF Omnidirectional Range Tactical Air Navigation Center. There's other people looking at facilities like HARP. This particular one is the VHF, which is very high frequency. Other facilities are in the ELF, the extremely low frequency range, if you will. In your view, Rosalind, there's people who connect this. I don't know if that's good or not, but do you think that there is a connection here, that they're testing atmospheric devices, basically superheating the atmosphere, and other types of experimentation with an increased aluminum or other particles in the atmosphere? Is there a link between these two, do you think?
There may be, but I can't draw, I haven't found the research documents to be able to draw a conclusion to that. I can speculate, but I hate to do that because I can't back up my speculation. However, I would imagine that there's a lot more going on than we know. But the jets impact us here in several ways. One, the cloud cover that they put up reduces the amount of direct sunlight reaching the Earth. It changes the climate here whenever they fly and they leave these man-made clouds, haze, or contrails. It's a definite climate change for us. The humidity goes up and is much, much higher than ever before. And that means that we have higher temperatures at night because the cloud cover keeps the temperatures higher at night. It means that we don't get freezing temperatures in the winter enough to kill the pests that attack the trees. The lack of direct sunlight reduces photosynthesis, which lowers crop production. So we do know that the impact of the jets is much greater than anyone would suspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It seems to be that we have drought now, Rosalind, in some parts of the world and massive rain in others. We've had practically rain here up here in the north, Scandinavia, all summer. It's been a lot of rain and very, very wet. And I can't help to think that this might be, I'm not saying it's a direct manipulation of the weather up here, but I'm definitely seeing a destabilizing factor, I think, because of potential experimentation that is going on in other parts of the world, meaning that we're still suffering from a consequence. We're getting effects up here, and I think in other parts of the world as well, because there must be, if you're messing with the weather in one part of the world, Rosalind, there must be consequences of this throughout the globe, correct?
Oh, that's absolutely correct. And if you go to my website, the weather modification section of my website, what you're really going to find is maps, U.S. maps of talking about the number of weather modification programs going on worldwide. And there's around 69 of them that are ongoing all the time. And American companies are heavily involved in those in some cases. In the United States alone, we have 66 weather modification programs ongoing every year, and that listing is a NOAA listing, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration records showing the type of programs we're doing: snow enhancement, rain enhancement. In other words, in many, many states, California, Texas, Montana, Idaho, Nevada, Utah, Wyoming, North Dakota. I mean, the list goes on. And also, the country of Mexico is modifying the weather. Canada is modifying the weather. And these are having international effects.
Yes.
You cannot modify the weather in one place without it being detrimental to some other location or area. And this is what's not good. It concerns me greatly. We even had a government office of the White House. We had a fellow who came up and he spoke. And the reason that he was speaking out was to say that this could be an international problem, having these weather modification programs and doing all the things that they have been doing. And so I want you to know that this is a possibility for everyone.
Absolutely. And what do you think will happen if we look at the discussion, and hopefully it is continued to be highlighted? Do you think that there will be any kind of legal issues here in terms of maybe international law, that someone is going to come in at some point and actually demand some kind of restrictive, measure on this? I mean, there must be, the military can't just go on and on and on about this, right? And do tests and because eventually someone will have to know that this has consequences on other countries around the world. Do you know if there's been any debate about